All right, today we're going to crack open a really powerful and, let's be honest, kind of counterintuitive idea from Nate Scott's book, Life is Rich. We're going to look at the secret weapon the wealthy use to not just get by during inflation, but to actually come out ahead. Does this feel a little too real for you? You land that pay raise, you're putting in the extra hours, but when you look at your bank account at the end of the year, it feels like you're just stuck on a financial treadmill. You're running faster and faster, but you're not actually going anywhere. Well, that isn't just a feeling. For most people, it's the reality. And Nate Scott just nails it with this quote. He paints this perfect picture of inflation being like a downward moving escalator. You're trying to climb up, right? But the whole system is literally pulling you back down. Every single step you take forward feels like it just gets erased. Okay, so if working harder isn't the answer, then what's really going on? What's the problem? Well, according to the source material, there are these two hidden forces, these wealth killers, that are basically designed to keep you stuck on that escalator. So let's pull back the curtain on these guys. And here you can see how this 1-2 punch really works. On one side, you've got inflation. So the cost of bread, gas, everything, it goes up, while the actual value of each dollar in your pocket goes down. Then on the other side, you've got taxes. So to keep up with inflation, you need that raise. But, and this is the kicker, that raise can push you into a higher tax bracket. So now the government takes an even bigger slice of your bigger but less valuable paycheck. You see, it's a total vicious cycle. Now, to see who gets hit the hardest, we can look at Robert Kiyosaki's famous cash flow quadrant. Most of us, we're right there in the E quadrant. We're employees. We trade our time for money. And that quadrant gets absolutely hammered by those two wealth killers we just talked about, because our income is tied directly to our labor, and it gets taxed at the highest rates. So, yeah, that's the problem. The game kind of seems rigged against us, doesn't it? But what if you could take that system, that downward moving escalator of inflation, and flip it on its head? What if you could make it work for you instead of against you? This is the million-dollar question right here. I mean, think about it. The price of your house goes up with inflation, the price of stocks, cars, food, it all goes up. But there is one major financial tool in our economy that, by law, stays exactly the same. It doesn't change. Any ideas what it is? The answer is debt. And I know what you're thinking. Debt? Isn't that the enemy, the thing we're all supposed to avoid like the plague? Well, the source material asks us to look at it differently. Debt isn't good or bad. It's just a tool. And if you know how to use it, it might just be the most powerful tool there is for turning what seems like a liability into a wealth-generating asset. So the key here, and this is absolutely crucial, is how you use it. We're not talking about racking up credit card debt to buy stuff that loses value. No way. We're talking about a concept the wealthy have mastered for centuries, using other people's money or leverage to get your hands on assets that actually go up in value. Okay, let's break this down with a super simple example. Look at step one. You go to the bank, you borrow $1 million, and you buy $1 million property. At this point, your net worth in this deal is zero. Simple enough? Now, step two, inflation kicks in. The cost of everything goes up, so that property is now worth $1.1 million. Then step three, and here's the magic, your loan from the bank, your debt, is still fixed at $1 million. It doesn't inflate with everything else. Which brings us to the grand finale, step four. $100,000 of real wealth, of equity, has just been created out of thin air. You did it just by holding an asset that was bought with fixed debt while the world around it inflated. And to really get your head around just how insane the power of this is, we have to talk about one key term, yield. Don't let it scare you. It's super simple. It's just your profit divided by the actual cash you personally put into the deal. That's it. Your return on investment. Okay, check this out. The difference here is just staggering. Let's imagine a $100,000 house goes up in value by 10%. That's a $10,000 profit. Now, if you paid all cash, that first bar shows your yield is 10%, which, hey, not bad. But look at that second bar. If you used leverage other people's money and only put $10,000 of your own cash down, that exact same $10,000 profit gives you a 100% return on your investment. That, my friends, is the awesome power of leverage. So Nate Scott gives us this awesome little checklist to help evaluate any investment. It's called the ideal formula. You want something that produces income, gives you tax deductions, builds your equity, and appreciates over time. But that last letter, L for leverage, he calls that the insider's secret. It's the jet fuel. It's the accelerator that multiplies the power of all the other parts. Now, a word of caution. This isn't just about crunching numbers or following a formula. To actually pull this off, you need a pretty major shift in how you think. It's about going from being a passive employee to becoming the active leader, the commander, really, of your own financial mission. And Scott borrows this brilliant framework from the US Army to make it really tangible. It all boils down to three things. First, you have to be the right kind of person, someone with integrity, courage, and competence. Second, you have to know your stuff, know yourself, your limits, and the market you're about to jump into. And maybe most importantly, you have to do something. You have to take action, make decisions, and take responsibility. And if you need one more piece of evidence, just listen to this from Napoleon Hill. He studied hundreds of ultra-wealthy people and found the one habit they all had in common wasn't some secret stock tip. It was the ability to make a decision and make it quickly. He says procrastination is the enemy that nearly everyone has to conquer to win. So there you have it. We've pulled apart the system that holds most people back, and we've shined a light on the secret weapon the rich use to turn that very same system into their greatest advantage. The principle itself is pretty simple, but putting it into practice, well, that takes leadership. It takes decisiveness, which really brings it all down to this final question. Now that you know the principle, what decision will you make?